Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Hello, revolutionaries. Welcome back to the Customer Service Revolution podcast. Last episode, we dug into the first half of the DiJulius Group's 10 Commandments, everything that transforms your customer experience from average to unforgettable. Today, we're looking inside because the truth is simple. You need to provide an exceptional employee experience in order to excel at your customer experience. This episode is all about the internal engine, the part most companies overlook, underfund, or just flat out misunderstand. We're talking about how hiring for character, not just competence, changes everything. Why world-class onboarding has nothing to do with that thick packet of HR paperwork. What's really fueling the retention crisis. The danger of accidental managers and how to build leaders on purpose. And why training must be treated like a product. Designed, delivered, and certified with the same rigor as anything you'd sell to a customer. By the end, you're going to see why the training and implementation part of the 10 Commandments is what makes the entire system stick sustainably, consistently, and at scale. So if you're ready to eliminate silos, build leaders who actually lead, and create a workplace people never want to leave, let's jump into part 2 of the DiJulius Group's methodology. Are you ready to go, John?
I am. How are you, Denise?
I'm doing fantastic. And yourself? You've been traveling a lot again.
Yeah. Good. Feeling good. Shoulders dramatically improved. Are you enjoying the holiday season?
I am. How about you? I love this time of year.
Yeah. When everything slows down and you finally get to be with some family, it's good.
It's wonderful. It really is. You have a lot of family plans coming up?
Yeah. And a nice little reset before we get back after it at the 2026.
Yay. Looking forward to 2026, though, too. All right, John, let's start today with the internal part. And we're going to talk about the commandments that involve recruitment, onboarding, and retention. So many companies are hiring for technical skills instead of character. Why is that a mistake?
Because almost anything could be taught. You know, I love the quote, hire for the heart, train for the part. Obviously, there are industries that need licensings and degrees specific, and that, is the price of admission. But, I'd much, technical skills can be taught. Behavior is a lot harder. It's a lot rooted in where you came from and your background. And that's why, the first commandment of the employee experience revolution is about creating a recruitment experience. And that has a lot of layers to it. And that recruiting starts before we actually sit down with an individual. It's how you're branding your company as an employer choice. I think the best companies scare more out of wanting to work there than they attract by design. And so I don't even want it to get to an interview. I think there's so much can be done on your website. Click here before you fill out an application. Just the whole branding of what you stand for, and not just going to a typical career page opportunities where it says we're wonderful and everyone makes a lot of money and fulfills every, life promise, but a part that says why we might not be a fit for you. So eliminating wrong fits, finding out who the customer experience rock stars are, and making those customer experience rock stars now be nervous that they're not going to get a job with you, because I think when people interview today, they're interviewing at multiple places, maybe multiple industries, and they're looking for the best deal. And the best deal is flexibility, work from home, more pay, whatever it is to them. And I think it's important that they don't even want to go on the next interview they have after they met with you, or the interview they just went on pales in comparison. So there's so much to just the recruitment side. And then there's the next part is making your interview process ungameable, because we can all, I think anyone can fake it for 30, 45 minutes and have the canned answers and right responses, but that doesn't mean that, that's going to be who they are when they show up.
That's a great point because right now people are using AI to help them train for an interview. So they're well practiced before they come in. They know what questions that company typically asks, and they're practicing that with their AI chat agent. So, how do you make it ungameable?
Well, so we have a lot of best practices in there, and one that we've used. You might have invented it, back in the 90s when you were our people development director after I had gone to the Disney Institute. But I remember we've been doing this, seems like almost since we opened, group interviews, and instead of interviewing 6 people independently, which could take 6 hours, you have a group interview with those 6 people, and you kind of go over the job, non-negotiable. This is what it pays. This is what we're looking for. And then you ask questions, and you go around the room and correct me again. I haven't done this. You've done this, but tell me a time when you went above and beyond for a customer. Scenario based, and the candidates think what they're being judged on is who has the best answer. But what we're looking at is what is the candidate doing when they're not answering? Are they checked out? Are they peeking at their Apple Watch? Are they just trying to, maybe they're going next and they're just thinking about how they can crush that story that the person's telling now? Or are they smiling, listening, nodding to the person talking? So, there's a ton of things like that, built into this commandment that the candidates don't know what they're looking for. And we're not trying to trick them, but we're trying to get to, the more authenticity. I say I like when you guys don't let me interview too often, but when I do, I always say I like to interview like Columbo, the detective Columbo, who is the bumbling idiot. For those of you who are the old enough to remember, you'd let your guard down because he was so clueless, and he would just go down rabbit holes that appeared to have nothing to do with the investigation. And I do that, I'd say, Denise, before we talk about this interview, I see that you went to, Mentor High School, or, and that you played, soccer, and, what was that like? And, I only played soccer 1 year because the coach played favorites, and, and they literally don't think the interview has started. But I think you find out a lot in the rabbit holes.
Absolutely. Following up from recruiting, then is the onboarding, which is just as important once they decide to accept the position and that we decide to offer them the position. What makes a world-class onboarding experience stand out from the typical HR paperwork marathon?
So we just did a live stream on this, a workshop in the December quarterly, and we have live streams every quarter, 2-hour workshops. Um, so this is really fresh in my mind. Onboarding has 4 phases. Hopefully, I remember them. Um, yeah, when we were writing this book that just came out last year, The Employee Experience Revolution, Dave Murray, vice president of a consulting, and me, I was excited and thought we really had a lot of content. But then I read something in another book, actually Joey Coleman's book, Never Lose an Employee Again, where he brought up something that I don't think, maybe you did this, but I don't remember ever having a system for. So let me back up. There's 4 parts of onboarding. There's the job offer acceptance, which is, usually you don't start tomorrow. That could be 2 weeks, 2 months. And that's what we didn't have down. Yeah, we'd offer you the job, but then we'd just say, we'll see you on January 5th. Show up here, and, and that's what he calls the hires remorse of you start second guessing. Maybe you got other job offers that come in after ours. Maybe you're telling people, oh, I got this job at, and people are like, oh, you want to work there? Oh, I heard that's, whatever you might hear. So that's a whole experience in itself that we were definitely underutilizing. Then you have literally the first few days where someone comes on site and, does what they do. The third part, and sometimes this is one and the same, but usually it isn't, is new employee orientation. I think in most cases, most companies can't, unless you're massive and you're hiring 50 people at a time, they can't justify that 1 or 2 day new employee orientation just for you. Just doesn't, there'll be things done. So you got the job offer, the literal physical first couple days at the job, your new employee orientation, and then what I call the rest of the 90 days. And each of those are pivotal. And if you go into just even new employee orientation, it should be renamed how not to get fired class, right? Because they just go over all the ways, you could lose your job if you no show, no call, get caught chewing gum, written up, blah, blah, blah. And those things are important. They don't have to be done the way they're done.
That's true. I think storytelling within that is always helpful as well.
And we did, with your help, the scavenger hunt. So now that's a game that they go to, different departments or different locations to find out the answer. And it's trivia, who holds the record for, to tell us why you should never chew gum. And there's so many benefits of that. And it's an aha story that, you used to tell very well. But, it's fun. And all these things get you meeting existing employees, cool kids that, you're going to, maybe we'll go out of your way next week to make you feel more comfortable because you're interacting with them.
Do you have any best practices from our consulting clients, perhaps, about I love what you said, that waiting period before they start, the once the offer has been accepted and before they start, that 2-week, 3-week, however long
Yeah.
waiting period that's in between, what do they do to keep them engaged?
So they celebrate it. They, you accept the job and something goes out, but maybe a couple of days later, you get something from your future boss that maybe you didn't meet, depending on, the interview, how that was structured. In a perfect world, you get a welcome video from the big person, the CEO, whoever the biggest person is that, depending on how big your company is. I'm just talking about how excited they are, and they're personalized. They say, Denise, it's not just a random message. They say, we're excited. They say something that they learned about you, in the interview process. And then they, just constant communication, being in the certainty business. It's still, January 2nd, you're going to meet so-and-so at this location. And then, upon arrival, they call it the interview. And, there's some great stories of our clients that they'll tell you to show up at 10 a.m. For your first day. And while everyone else shows up at 9. And in the interview process, you didn't realize they ask you questions like, what's a $20 indulgence that you like? Or, if you were a Major League Baseball player, what would be your walk-up song? Just trivial banter. And then when you walk in, the song's blaring, your team is in the, whatever, the tunnel for you, and you have your little luxury waiting at your table. All these are huge. I mean, new jobs are huge in people's lives. To capture it and to keep it going and to make them feel like they made the right decision, because they had options. They definitely had options.
I love it. I love it. What a great first day.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, they have options. Now they're there. How do we keep them? So, retention is a major crisis right now. What's the biggest reason employees leave? And how do these best practices that come from the 10 Commandments help solve it?
Yeah. So retaining, we look at that as 91 days and out. And figuring out, what it is. And there's a lot of good statistics in the book that say that close to 80% of an employee's professional development at a company comes in within their first 3 months. So if you're going to work here for, the next 5 or 10 years, you're only going to get 20% of your professional development after those 90 days. And so investing in you, making you smarter, making your resume stronger actually keeps people working for you. Once your resume gets dusty and you feel like you're not adding value to the resume, I believe as leaders, we need to be in the surplus value business and constantly helping our employees get smarter, and which should mostly benefit us. If it doesn't, then, that's okay too. It benefits them, but I mean, they're going to go further. Um, you know, Constant communication. I can't stress enough about the professional development, but also what the best companies do is they train the whole person. And so the compliments, my favorite compliments I've got when I meet my staff's parents or significant other, but it's more come from their parents because, in our first business salons, our entry level employees could be in their young to mid 20s. And I'll meet their parents sometime in the first year and they'll say, I don't know what you did to my daughter, but she's a different person. And that's really rewarding. Investing in them in things that just don't make them more profitable for you. So I call it the 5 F's. And the 5 F's are typically, or they are the top New Year's resolutions every year, right? So it's fitness, finance, fun, faith, and family. And we aren't experts in those areas, but we bring in experts in those areas. And it's open. If we're having a big company meeting, we're going to say, we're going to have a mortgage lender. Anyone wants to consider buying a house, fill out this application. This mortgage lender can tell you what you need, how much down payment, what your house payment, boom, 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 boom. Or a money management class. You don't have to do it. It's volunteer. Or we have a book reading club on being better parenting, or, fitness. And the cool thing is, helping them be stronger in those critical areas or those areas they want to be, as well as we never have to pay anyone. Now, sometimes someone on our team might be a resident expert, but most of the time we're bringing in mortgage lenders, finance, fitness, health, eating, all those. These, local experts love the opportunity to get in front of our 100+ employees. And guess what? They, turn, some of them into clients. So it's a win-win for everyone. But it also shows our employees that, we care about, again, building the entire person, not just the professional side of it.
I love that. Yeah, and you can see the loyalty in the teams that you've built because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And recognition. I mean, you can't, you got to be in the recognition business, the caught you doing something right business, the celebrate. Another best practice that I learned and try to incorporate is making their family part of the experience. I always felt, and still do, that the biggest competitor to losing an employee is not the business that they might hire. It's the family member, your spouse, your significant other complaining that you're gone too much and they met someone that said they would hire you and pay you more. And that's fair. I mean, that's always, going to be a case during anyone's career and peak seasons. And I think it's really important to engage their family, reward their family, thank their family, because the family had to make a sacrifice in order for Denise or Dave or Claudia to be working like they've been the past 2 months during our peak season, giving a reward to the family as a result, acknowledging that, that they've had to pick up place. One of my favorite things back in the salon is when a co-designer, hairdresser assistant, we hire them and they have to train for a year. And when they get promoted, it's a big deal in their life. And they don't know it when it's going to happen. This just happened last week, but they'll send the co-designer to go get something. And when the co-designer returns, her whole family's there, her dad, her boyfriend, her mom, her cousin, her best friend. And to get that emotional connection and buy-in of what a great company this is and how well they take care of their family member can go a long ways.
I love that. You mentioned caught you doing something right. You want to explain what that is?
Well, I think you mastered this. You tell us. You were very good at you took it and ran with it and made it into something I never thought it would be.
Well, caught you doing something right, I think is contagious. It's people save those cards. So I don't remember where you brought that back from, or if it was something that you came up with on your own, but caught you doing something right was a way to acknowledge team members. And we turned it into a system to make sure it happened, especially at the leadership level. So you would look at all of the team members in your department, say, and who had you not acknowledged in some time to look for things that they were doing right. And then we would send a card out caught you doing something right, saying what we saw them do well and how appreciative we were for that. And we would mail that to them. And there were times we did it at meetings, I think, even where you would fill it out for another team member and pass them around. And it just creates such wonderful, not just the acknowledgement, but gosh, the way that you feel about each other and your team. And it makes
Yeah,
you,
and it's really cool to get it that, you didn't even realize someone noticed that, this is about someone else, but like the story could be like, I was leaving, needed, to get out, be somewhere, but I saw that you were in over your head and hung up my jacket, and stayed with you, right? And didn't leave you flailing. Maybe you were a rookie with less experience or whatever it was. And then for someone to write that and recognize you is huge. And then you start looking for that more, like you want to do that again.
yeah, it was a really nice, or is a really nice thing. Yeah, and it creates a culture of that. And it's a low, no cost type of thing that any organization can build in.
And we track it. And so the managers will turn in a report of the last quarter who they caught doing something right. And we could look at that and say, Denise, you haven't caught Lindsay doing anything right 90 days. It doesn't have to be heroic. It needs to be genuine. But I mean, Lindsay shows up every day to work and crushes it. Right. So kind of like the above and beyond stories. It doesn't have to be the crazy saving the baby in a burning building, just that she's professional, just that she has to take some tough calls and the next person she's dealing with doesn't realize what the last call was like. And I really like that about you, Lindsay. That's something I want to get better at, the way you are so poised under pressure, things like that.
Yeah, you should always make a point to catch them doing more right than wrong, or acknowledging more right than wrong. Let's get into another big one. This ties to communication too. Tearing down silos and developing leaders. Cross departmental collaboration is often a blind spot. How do you help organizations eliminate those?
Yeah. So I mean, this is the number one thing we get with consulting is, and this isn't top down, right? This isn't the employee experience as much as it's the team member department experience with each other and, back office and front office, back of the house, home office, who don't deal necessarily with the external customer, but they support operations. Every business has it. And, it's making sure that they understand who their customer is. And it might, again, it's probably not the external customer. And they both have to, both meaning both departments, but there's multiple departments here, have to understand a day in the life of each other because, I don't know what you're doing all day. All I know is I've asked you for a lot of things and you aren't getting them to me. And I'm like, what is she doing? And so you might get critical, you might, whatever. And then, if I understood better, you're not only getting, asked by me these 10 things, but you're getting asked by all the consultants these 10 things besides your day job. So understanding, so the example people really like is I use when I worked at UPS in the middle of the night as a preloader. I loaded trucks that, boxes went on the trucks and then the truck driver came in at 8 in the morning and delivered it. If you had asked me back then this is in the 80s, who my customer was, I would have looked at you at like two heads. What do you mean who my customer is? I work in a warehouse in the middle of the night putting packages on trucks. The box, I guess, is my customer. And, long story short, eventually went driving. And it wasn't until then I realized when I was a preloader, the driver was my UPS failed to teach me the driver was my customer and how good or not good I did loading those trucks in the order they needed to go impacted him and the customers he was delivering to. And it might sound silly, but that never crossed my mind. And people love that story. And so, teaching people what the other role is, how hard their role is, and then the impact we make on that role by how easy or difficult we are.
Something that you talk about a lot and you've written some blogs on is accidental managers. What, and the importance of avoiding accidental managers. What is that? And what leadership skills matter most today?
It's in our book. There's some big, Forbes or Fortune 100, but they said something to the effect that like 85% of bosses are accidental managers. Trying to think if you were an accidental manager back in the day.
I'm
I don't
sure I
think
was.
so. But it's one of those things where it's like, hey, Denise, congratulations, you are the head of the spa because we really like you, but also because we lost the head of the spa and we need a body, right? And you may or may not be the best candidate to be the head of the spa. Chances are you are, but we didn't set you up. We haven't been training you. We haven't, been putting, but now Monday you're leading people that Friday you were going out for happy hour with. We didn't put you in a position to be successful and give you the credibility and, show that you've gone through all these courses and, you're in a management tracking. And so, that's not a diss on the accidental manager. That's a diss on the higher ups that are just pulling people and putting them in there. And obviously it's worse when they're not a good candidate. I don't know if it's worse. It's both bad, but if they're not a leadership candidate, that looks really bad. Now you have egg on your face. No one ever wants that position because it didn't last. You get fired. Or the good example of you had high morale, doing really well. Now we threw you in a position with no training, no proper, and you're going to fail. And then we're gonna, Denise, what are you doing? And now you're not doing well, and it's all bad. So just making sure that we have a bench, you have a minor league system. It's never too early. If someone shows, doesn't mean they're going to get promoted next week, next month. It might be, a 2-year course. It might be, having, a leadership development program of courses, of people skills, of how to lead people, obviously the technical parts of the job.
Listeners, if this conversation is resonating with you and has you thinking, hey, we need to build this into our culture, not just talk about it, there's an easy, high impact way to start, and that is our Experience Revolution membership. John mentioned that we just did a workshop we did one on recruiting and onboarding recently. It's an annual membership designed for companies that want consistent, relevant CX and employee experience training delivered without the heavy lift. So every year, members get 4 live virtual workshops led by John himself and Dave Murray, our VP of Consulting, plus on demand access to every replay we've ever released. So you would get the recruiting and onboarding that were just done too. It's a perfect way to bring your leadership team together, keep customer and employee experience top of mind, and give your managers real tools that they can apply. Instead of one-off events, you get a steady cadence of high-quality workshops that build on each other. So it helps your organization stay aligned, engaged, and moving forward. If you're ready to sign up or learn more, join the membership. Just go to tdg.click/membership. Again, it's tdg.click/membership. Okay, let's get on.
Denise, let me mention what the 26 workshops are.
Yes, please.
March 9th, Q1, break down silos, what we just talked about, foster cross-departmental collaboration, clarify handoffs, and promote empathy and teamwork. June 8th, Q2, creating a day in the life of your customer to build empathy and improve service by truly understanding your customers' lives and challenges. Fall quarter, September 14th, how to create a customer experience action statement. Learn how to create and implement a customer experience action statement, which is your North Star, what every employee should be intentionally doing every time they interact with another human being, not just the external customer. And then December 2026, Q4 is building and developing future leaders.
Yay. Thank you for that. It's a big lineup, plus all the past ones you get too in the library. John, speaking of training and implementation. So I know this is one part that companies can't skip. Why is that?
Well, I don't think there's a shortage of ideas. And we've all been to seminars and read books and highlighted to death. but it's taking less ideas, creating a system, and executing them. And that's where it falls off. You have to be able to, the easy part is sit in a room with a bunch of people and create some, statements and nevers and always and service recovery. But, then what? Now we got to create the system for it. How do you train it? There's 5 or 6 steps. I hope I remember them off the top of my head to launch anything. Create it, launch it, so that's training everyone on it. Certify it, that just because you had to sit through the seminar video doesn't mean you actually retained it. So there has to be a certification element of, all right, Denise, what is our nevers and always? If the never's this, the always that. What is our service recovery training that we do when a customer's upset? And what do we do at this stage? What's the service defect we want to avoid? All those. Certify it, then hold accountable, celebrate and coach. And then you kind of do it all over again to, there's not a ribbon cutting ceremony where you just stop and say, we're there. Top of mind awareness, constantly be celebrating, recalibrating that this is who we are and the type of culture we're building and it's working. And then obviously coaching to the ones that need more recertification.
Okay, certification. Talk about why that's so critical for consistency,
Well,
especially
again,
in organization.
yeah, you could, we all could watch a video. Did we listen to it? Did we retain it? Uh, or sit through a seminar or a 1-day training or whatever it is. Uh, but there could be 2 things that are happening. One, you're not buying into it. You don't agree with it. Or 2, you're just not paying attention, right? Both are horrible. So we have to have a certification element that after you take this, you're going to get a test right away or within 48 hours. And you have to be certified to, work in that position. Just like the technical certification of an accountant, of a pilot, of a hairdresser, of a chef. I don't think we would ever hire anyone randomly and trust that because they have a paper, a degree that they could, cook the food the way we, have the food prepared, cut the hair the way we, be a consultant on our 10 commandments. So whether it's soft skill or technical skills, they have to pass out of that. And most companies are pretty good at the technical certification, but they're not good at the soft skills. It's, do you know what Ford is? Do you know what it stands for? Do you know how to collect it? Do you know how to retrieve it? Do you know how to utilize it? Do you know the nevers and always? Do you know how to build a rapport? Do you know how to make a brilliant comeback? At the signature experience at this touch point, what are your things you have to do when you interact with a client? That is part of our promise. So it's all that. And so it's not only the first time, but then it's top of mind awareness. Now you've certified. Now we just, micro learning, sending out, a 90-second video once a week on your phone app, something that everyone has to watch. It's more of a reminder of something you already learned. It's not new material, but it's different every week. I mean, you can get, easily 52 weeks out of sending, but it's just TOMA, top of mind awareness. That's what the best companies are doing. There's no ribbon cutting ceremony to being world class. You never arrive.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
All right. So thinking about what we talked about last week in the first part of the 10 commandments and what we talked about today, if an organization could only start with one commandment, which creates the fastest and biggest impact?
So I'm going to answer it 2 ways because obviously there's my answer is always the first commandment, which is creating the customer experience revolution. Is that it?
Action statement, customer experience action statement,
Well, we renamed it.
igniting the
Yeah.
revolution.
Yeah. So, but in that is creating the action statement, the customer experience action statement, your North Star that every employee has to do every time. This is transformational. When you do this and everyone's on the same page, every world-class company has a customer experience action statement. The frontline employee knows that they have to do. It's a burden with the 3 pillars. That's the how and the nevers and always. It's transformational. It's drawing a line in the sand. It's saying we are going to be customer obsessed. We're not going to be good at customer service. We are going to be customer obsessed. That's always, most of the time, the first place we start. The only caveat to that is sometimes as consultants, if we find out that you're hemorrhaging somewhere else, sometimes we have to jump in that area. So a common one, is in a perfect world, we'd like to start with the action statement pillars and nevers and always. But some people call us and say they are having a lot of service defects right now and really upsetting their customers and making it worse by how they handle it, which is our zero risk commandment of, all right, we got to come in, we got to find out where you're dropping the ball the most, why, what systems can we put into place to reduce that significantly, and we'll never eliminate it, but if we can get it from 6% at a time to 3.5% at a time, the last part is, what do we do when it still happens 3.5% at a time? Like, we know it's going to happen. Why do we act like a deer in headlights when it happens? And then we actually maybe are more impressive when we drop the ball, but how we made it right. So yeah, there's one-offs sometimes. So I just don't want a broad stroke. If there's triage of something that needs, it might be hiring, it might be retaining. It doesn't matter how good your customer experience systems are if you're not hiring the right people that are going to do it, and you can't keep people long enough to do it, then a lot of times the internal experience will be the number one priority.
John, you built all your companies on customer experience.
You help me.
I just did what you told me to.
Yeah.
You built your companies on customer experience and did it very well. And you started a revolution in doing this. So, and part of the goal was always to change the world by creating a customer service revolution. What do you see this customer experience revolution looking like in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's cool. I think it's really picked up steam outside of the DiJulius Group. I think it's finally an imperative. In the past, it was a nice to have. Customer service was more thought of as defense. So let's have some people answering the phones for support, put out fires, whatever. And the marketing was the offense. And now I believe, more and more companies have found that, your customer experience is your offense. And that's going to make more customers come back more often, pay higher prices, and send more people, earn sales growth. And with AI, I think AI is going to help. One thing I don't agree with is I hear a lot of speakers and webinars say that the customer is more demanding than they've ever been. I don't think so. I think they're less tolerant of bad experience, and I know I am. And there's just no point that something like this had to happen. That was laziness from management, even though it's being done to me by the frontline person. Didn't train him well, didn't hire him well, whatever, or having them hide behind policy. But I think the human experience, it's like so rare today that when we get it, it better be on. In the past, I was just talking to a CEO of a bank, and he said, 20 years ago, we'd see customers literally weekly, the same customers. Now with digital and online, they may talk to us once a year, but when they do, we better know who they are, better make them feel like it, better be courteous, better make it easy to do business with us.
Such a great point. It's true. I used to go to the bank every week, and now I couldn't tell you last time I walked in a bank.
I couldn't imagine. I mean, I went last week, but it was as a consultant, not as a consumer.
Well, listeners, this wraps up part 2 of the 10 Commandments, where customer experience only becomes more powerful because the employee experience is intentionally designed to support it. If there's one theme that we've discussed today that really comes across, it's that companies don't rise to the level of their goals, they rise to the level of their systems. And the systems that you put in place are so important. Hiring for character, onboarding with purpose, tearing down silos, building real leaders, certifying employees. These aren't just initiatives, they're infrastructure. And when you get the infrastructure right, everything else performs better. Customer satisfaction, retention, employee engagement, profitability, every metric that matters. If you missed part 1 of the methodology, go back and listen to last week's episode. The two halves complete each other. And if you're ready to take action, not just inspiration, schedule a call to explore the Customer Experience Executive Academy or our consulting services. And get in touch with Claudia at tdg.click/Claudia. You can schedule a call with her right there. That's tdg-tdg.click/Claudia. Thanks for joining us on the Customer Service Revolution podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks, John.
Thanks, everyone.